We often think about spirituality, in terms of these big established religions. You've got ancient texts, grand cathedrals. But what if some of the deepest connections, the really vital traditions, are woven right into a community's land and their ancestry, almost like defying our usual idea of what a temple even is? Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of place. It's the Makki Sarthavu temple in Napoklu, that's in Kodagu or Coorg in Karnataka, India. Our mission, really, is to explore this unique window into a specific cultural identity and, well, a different way of connecting with the spiritual world, a very personal way.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is that Makki Sarthavu isn't a deity from the mainstream Hindu pantheon we might know. He's revered as a powerful local spirit deity. It's part of what's called
Bhutaradan.
Right, it's this vibrant tradition of spirit worship you find in the region. Deities are invoked, often through ritual possession, and they act as community protectors. And this practice, it's absolutely central to the native Kodava community. It's deeply tied into their customs, their ancestral spirit worship. A bit like the Buddha Kola tradition you might know from coastal Karnataka.
Oh, right, with the elaborate rituals for ancestral spirits.
Yeah, exactly like that. It also involves honoring ancestral spirits in very specific ways. So it really sets the scene for understanding a very particular kind of spiritual connection.
That distinct reverence, yeah, for a local spirit deity and how it ties into the Kodava community, that really sets it apart. Speaking of setting the scene, maybe you could paint a picture for us. Where exactly does this tradition unfold?
Okay, yeah, so picture stepping out into that crisp Kodagu air. You're surrounded by this intense green of coffee estates, and it's all nestled right there in the Western Ghats, often misty.
Sounds beautiful.
It really is. And it's more than just scenic. The landscape itself almost feels like it whispers of spiritual connection. It creates this profound, sacred atmosphere. Napoklu itself, the village, it's quite small, tucked away maybe 23 kilometers west of Madikeri town. And this natural setting, it's not just a pretty backdrop, it really shapes things. Indigenous spiritual practices like this often really intertwine directly with the natural world around them.
It does sound incredibly serene, almost like the temple sort of grew out of the land. And in that specific setting, this guardian deity, Makki Sarthavu, he must take on a very specific meaning for the Kodava people. What's his role in their lives exactly?
Absolutely. He's seen as the protector, the guardian,
Yeah.
of the people, their land, their traditions, which are age-old. Families often seek his blessings, especially during those really critical life moments, births, weddings, maybe before starting something new.
Right.
It's not just a vague belief. It feels like a real palpable presence for them.
Okay, so this is a very personalized kind of worship then, different from the big codified religious systems we might be more familiar with. When you say it's non-Vedic and ancestral, what does that actually mean in practice? How do the Kodava people engage with him? What makes it so distinct?
That's a really key point. This form of worship is profoundly tied to Kodava identity, their heritage. It stands clearly apart from mainstream Hindu temple rituals. So non-Vedic means it operates outside the framework of the Vedas, the scriptures that underpin a lot of mainstream Hinduism.
Got it.
Instead, it emphasizes these indigenous ancestral traditions that are really specific to the Kodava people. So it's less about following prescribed texts and more about this direct living link to their ancestors and the land itself.
That's fascinating, how a figure like Makki Sarthavu fills that role we might associate with larger religious institutions, especially when things get tough. I can imagine that sense of reassurance must be incredibly powerful for the community. Maybe like how other cultures have their own local legends or protective figures.
Exactly that. Makki Sarthavu is very much seen as a present help, a protector, especially, say, during natural disasters or even personal crises. The community turns to him for comfort, for intervention, and that really cements his importance in their daily lives, their well-being.
Right.
It really shows how these deeply rooted spiritual figures become, cornerstones of community strength. Resilience.
And these beliefs are clearly very much alive today, especially through the temple's festivals and rituals. The annual festival, the Jatre, you mentioned, sounds like quite something.
Oh, it really is. The Jatre is a huge deal, a very significant event, and it's held with just immense devotion. You see traditional Kodava rituals, these elaborate offerings, processions. It's quite lively. You draw thousands of people, devotees from all the nearby villages. It creates this incredible atmosphere of shared faith and celebration.
Wow.
It's more than just a religious event. It's a powerful cultural gathering, too.
Sounds completely immersive. But beyond that big festival, you mentioned spirit invocation earlier. That sounds, well, particularly unique. Can you maybe dig into that a bit more? What happens during those rituals? Why are they so meaningful?
Yeah, the spirit invocation part is really compelling. You have respected local figures, maybe priests or spiritual mediums, performing these ceremonies. And the belief is that through these rituals, the deity's spirit is actually brought forth,
Really?
offering direct guidance, direct connection to the community. It provides this tangible, almost interactive form of spirituality.
Mm.
People might get advice on anything from community disputes to personal problems. It's seen as a direct line,
Yeah.
not just symbolica.
Okay. So we've talked about the place, the deity's role, the living traditions, but pulling it all together, what does this really tell us about the sheer diversity of spiritual practices out there? What's the sort of aha moment here for someone listening wanting to get a handle on this?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, I think the Makki Sarthavu temple really challenges our maybe Western-centric ideas of what religion or worship has to look like.
Hmm.
It shows this fluid, deeply integrated spiritual life that's tied directly to the land, to lineage,
Hmm.
not just to, say, a set of rules or doctrines. This temple represents Kodavas spirit worship, Butaradhan, a tradition you just won't commonly find outside the Kodagu region. And that might be the aha moment. Recognizing this truly singular cultural and spiritual practice, it exists vibrantly alongside, but still very distinct from mainstream faiths.
So the temple's very existence is crucial then for understanding the folk religion, the heritage of that whole region.
Ah.
It sounds like a powerful symbol of local belief systems,
Mm.
showing this deep blend of spirituality with nature and ancestry.
It absolutely is. And, knowledge is most valuable when it's understood and maybe applied in some way.
Yeah.
And learning about this, it encourages us, I think, to really appreciate the depth and the specific kind of wisdom held within these local traditions.
Right.
It just highlights that spirituality takes countless forms. And some of those profound connections people have are found in these really deeply localized practices.
So just to kind of wrap up then, what we've really looked at today is the Makki Sarthavu Temple. It's this truly distinctive sanctuary embodying a remarkable mix of spirituality, nature, and ancestral reverence. And it acts as a kind of living heart for the Kodava community.
It's a really powerful testament, isn't it, to how profoundly specific communities connect with the sacred, often way beyond the narratives we're most familiar with.
Right, which leaves us with a thought, maybe. In a world that often seems to be looking for universal truths or these big, broad spiritual movements,
Mhm.
what can we actually learn from localized, deeply rooted spiritual traditions, like the one around Makki Sarthavu? And how do they reflect that profound, that enduring connection that people can have to their specific land and to their own past? Something to think about.